What is up, y'all? Today we're gonna do some somewhat different. Somewhat different. It is gonna be a how I feel video, but it's not gonna be me roasting anything or cause trust me, this is nothing to roast. It's been 1 week since I've seen MJ biopic. My two most viewed videos on this channel are both my reactions to the trailers for the Michael movie. So I might as well finish it off and make a review now that I've seen it. I did get early access tickets. I went with my mom. Seen it in IMAX. This is gonna be a spoiler review. So before you leave, in case you haven't seen it, the rating I'm gonna give it is a 9 out of 10. Now that that's done, I'm gonna explain why, and it will be spoilers. So the door. Let's start off with the positives. Most obvious, Jafar. That might be the greatest casting choice of all time. I mean, I remember seeing a lot of clips of his uncles, members of the Jackson 5, Marlon Jackson to be specific. He would always say, Jafar was imitating Michael, Jafar became Michael. When I hear, Marlon said, I'm just thinking, okay, he's gonna gas it a little bit. Obviously, that's his nephew and he's portraying his brother, wants the movie to do great. He's also a producer for the movie. But when I seen it, I seen it in the trailers alone, and then when I seen it really in the movie, it really felt like I was like watching Michael. The makeup team alone is gonna win Oscar, whatever Oscar it is, because I mean, not even just Jafar. It was Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson, Nia Long as Catherine. All the brothers look just like the real Jackson 5. I mean, they tried for like everybody. They put in a lot of effort for everybody. But back to Jafar, I think we got too comfortable with how much he sounded like Mike. Saw it in the trailers, but like hearing the whole movie of him talking like him, we just got a little. It was kind of crazy looking back on it. I do want to say that I've seen this movie twice in theaters, and I'm not gonna mention how I watched it third time. Don't snitch. For singing, they mixed his vocals with Michael's vocals, so there's some parts where it's him singing, some parts where it's Michael singing, and then as far as like concerts and everything, they're like blending both. Even just like the small mannerisms, taking like him acting as Michael aside, just him as an actor in general. This is his first movie. Great. He did great. He conveyed emotions. He's funny. That's one of the best things about this movie is it had a lot of funny moments. I feel like I should have made a script for this. Anyways, Jafar, 10 out of 10 performance. One of the best performances I've ever seen. My mom even said like she's giving it a 10, the whole movie in general a 10 alone, just off the performance itself. I also want to give shout out to Giuliano, who played young Michael. In the short amount of time he had, which I'll get to that, he killed it. He's a star. Just a short amount of time, he really did feel like young Michael. I think this was his first like actual movie role, and he could really dance too. Like he could do like grown Michael moves, not just Jackson 5 Michael moves. He could do grown Michael moves. Also want to give shout outs to Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson. He was insane. He should win Best Supporting Actor. Like every time he was on screen, I knew he was gonna do good. I was probably more excited to see him portray Joe Jackson than I was to see Jafar portray Michael. One of my new favorite actors. Shout out to Coleman Domingo. Nia Long as Catherine, Michael's mom. She's Nia Long. You already know she hooped. I don't even got to say too much. Some more positives. The performances were all good. The songs, even some songs that I didn't expect to be in the movie were in it, even if they were just like small instrumental stuff, were great. I think my favorite part of the whole movie might have been the recreation of Thriller. Luckily for me, my theater, the first time watching was quiet. Pretty quiet, not too rowdy, not too, up and dancing. I think the story they went with was good. It was mostly about, again, this is going to be a part 1 movie. They're going to drop a second one in a year or two. That got greenlit today officially. The story they went with of Michael needing to break away from his family and his father was pretty good. And it's kind of crazy because obviously everybody's going to compare this movie to, and has been comparing it to, the Jackson's American Dream, which is the only other relevant Michael biopic / even though that's more of a Jackson 5, Jackson family biopic. Even though they end pretty much in the same time period, they tell two completely different stories. So with Michael, it's like rise to his peak and breaking away from his family, breaking away from his father. And they tell a really good story from the very beginning of him struggling to look his dad in the eye up until the end where he finally looks his dad in the eye and says, this is our last and final tour, yada yada yada. That's why one of the selling points of the movie was like his story begins. It's his rise, I'm a diehard Michael Jackson fan, so like this movie did mean a lot. I've been tracking this movie for like 4 years, and I'm happy I lived to see it. Those are most of my positives. I'll probably think about some as this video goes on, but let's go into like a few critiques that I do have. The first time I watched this movie, it did feel like really, really fast paced. Jackson 5 era was probably 20 minutes. Then we go straight to Off the Wall. That's only about 10 minutes. And then we get like all Thriller and Victory Tour for the rest of the movie. Everything on screen that we did see was great. Don't get me wrong on that. Everything that was on the movie, on the screen, was great that we seen. It's just the pacing and some of the stuff that they left out during those time periods, which some stuff that had to legally. I'll get to that eventually. It was a lot of bouncing around. One of the critiques I do have is I wish for the Billie Jean performance, it was the whole thing. I wish it was the whole thing instead of like cutting it in half pretty much and like mixing it with the him leaving the building in New York after getting that Billie Jean music video on TV. I wish it was its own, because that's his breakout performance. Like Human Nature got its entire performance, its entire song played. I wish they did for Billie Jean. I really wanted to see that just in itself, full song. But that's just like a real minor critique. That was my biggest issue with the movie, even when I first watched it. When I walked out, was the pacing was a little quick. It's like a roller coaster. It goes boom, 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 boom. Then we stay still for a little bit in one era. Boom, 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 boom. I think another critique, this one isn't really like any of the producer's fault or anything. This is really, for me, it might be a preference, but it's just them not being able to include all of his siblings. Three of them, Reby, the oldest sister, Randy, the youngest brother, and Janet didn't want to be in the movie. They opted not to be in it, so I think it's more so them not getting along with his estate and his manager and all that, more than them like having a problem with the movie production and everything. Because Michael's son is one of the producers. Obviously, his nephew's playing him. His brothers are helping produce the movie. So it's only a few of Michael's siblings that like don't mess with it. And it's not even that they don't mess with it. They're all supportive. They've all been supportive of, Jafar and all that. But it's just they didn't want to get casted. And that's just a me thing. On top of that, them not having Randy means they couldn't use certain songs. Gonna skip ahead a little bit, but at the end of the Victory Tour, they're playing the song Working Day and Night. In real life, the last song on that show was Shake Your Body, which was co-written by Randy and Michael, obviously. So he didn't sign over the rights to use that song. And because of that, they just changed it, which Working Day and Night did work more for the movie and its narrative, and I'm not complaining because I do like that song. Not something too crazy, but like more of a me thing. You know what I mean? I think another critique, how little time they gave young Michael. They only gave him about 20 minutes, and I wanted to see a little bit more. I think they probably had to cut some stuff off. I think they cut off one of the performances he was supposed to have. Diana Ross wasn't in the movie. She was supposed to be in the movie, but legally they had to take a lot of her scenes out, and I think that's why at least the Off the Wall era felt kind of rushed, because they had to cut out a bunch of stuff that happened between her and Michael. We'll say that. Wish they gave Juliano about 10 more minutes. I really wanted to see them go in more on his relationship with Barry Gordy and how like it'll kind of make Joe Jackson a little jealous. We saw a little bit, but not like a whole lot. Not like we did with American Dream. But I do want to say one good thing about Giuliano's time is it wasn't a rehash of Jackson's American Dream. Like there was no scenes that like repeated that were the exact same from Jackson's American Dream. Even when they went into the Apollo Theater, they just sang Never Can Say Goodbye instead of Twist and Shout, which is what they're singing in real life. Obviously, Never Can Say Goodbye is a Jackson 5 song. But, movie took liberties. I'm not complaining because Never Can Say Goodbye is one of my favorite Jackson 5 songs. That was probably my favorite like Jackson 5 moment in the movie. Given the timeline of the movie, being from Jackson 5 up to Bad But Really Victory Tour, I wish they gave his brothers just a tiny bit more personality or more character, I guess. The only one that seemed like they had a little bit of character was Marlon, which is who Michael was closest with growing up. And the biggest thing about his character is he hates animals. Hating the rat, he was hating on Bubbles, and he was hating on the snake. But it was kind of funny. Jermaine didn't get that many lines. Most lines he got was he has a family, can't be playing games. They gave Tito a little bit of line, a little bit of dialogue. There was a scene after Michael's Motown 25 Billie Jean performance where Joe Jackson is like, that's my son, that's my boy, money making machine. And Tito was like, you just couldn't let him have one night, could you? R.I.P. Tito. Jackie barely had any lines. I think one of his lines was, how are we going to tour without Jermaine? They kind of talked about that, by the way, him leaving the group. I was wondering how they were going to do that era of him leaving, getting replaced by Randy, but Randy's not in the movie. So they're just going to have four brothers. Noddies didn't really show that era a lot. They gave one triumph performance, and it was just Michael on stage by himself. But yeah, that's one of my other critiques. Just the brothers not really having that much character. And the only reason I feel like it's kind of important is because of the timeline that the movie went with. If they really was going to be like a full or birth to death movie, then the brothers' personalities wouldn't really matter because they could just skip through it. But the brothers were in this movie a lot, but they were just kind of more like they were kind of just bodies there. They did look like them. Like, shout out to the makeup team because they really did look like the Jackson 5. Not the craziest thing. Like I said, I'm not giving this movie anything lower than a 9. Probably a 9.5 because it really is. It was a crazy experience, especially watching it the first time. And I watched it a few times since then. So since then, like, the pacing doesn't seem nearly as bad as it was the first time I watched, which I think is just the thing with a lot of movies. Is the first time you watch it, the pacing, it just moves because you don't know what you're gonna see next. After I watch it the first time, I know what I'm gonna see next, and now I can like break down each scene. All right, that's enough about positives and critiques. Let's talk about comparisons. Jackson 5, American Dream, Michael. I do love that they're two different movies, like two different stories. Obviously, everybody's gonna compare them. I don't think you really can because they're two different stories. Like, let's compare the character of Joe Jackson and Michael versus Joe Jackson and Jackson's American Dream. American Dream is more of a build up to understand Joe's character. You know what I mean? You see his beginnings. You see the whole family's beginnings. Them, just wanting to get out of Gary, Indiana. Him wanting to get them out of trouble. The method is still the same as Joe and Michael. Not the best method, but everybody knows the story about Joe Jackson. So there's no point in me even really getting too deep into it. As far as Joe and Michael, because it's a movie and not a miniseries like American Dream, Joe and Michael has to be the villain. He's the villain, easily. You don't get that much of a good way to describe it. Because Joe in American Dream, they show him, wanting better for his kids. And that one was produced by the family as well. He's still the villain in that too. I don't know what you would call a villain who's like aligned with the protagonist. But as far as Joe and Michael, he's like, 5 minutes into the movie, he bringing out the belt. That caught me off guard. I didn't think it was going to be that soon. He's just like greedy, hungry, way more manipulative, and like mean to Michael in this one than he was in American Dream. And I think Coleman Domingo like did great as Joe Jackson. I feel like if you put Coleman Domingo in American Dream and have him build a character from there, it would be even better. But again, as far as like Jackson's American Dream, that one's just the rise of the family in general. It's not just about Michael. Even the brothers, every sibling is included. The brothers get their story individually. The sisters even get a little bit of their own story, except for Janet. For some reason, they just don't even. She just disappears in American Dream, and she ain't even in Michael. So we'll see her when she gets her own biopic. But yeah, Jackson's American Dream is just the rise of the family, opposed to Michael, which is pretty much the rise of Michael. You know what I mean? So it's like telling the story from the entire family's perspective in American Dream and telling the story from Michael's perspective in Michael. So that's why I think you can't compare. My sister, she had seen it. She felt like American Dream is better because she liked that story more. And I was like, you can't really compare them. It's not worth comparing them. I'll say that. Because American Dream is 4 or 5 hours long. Michael is barely over 2. If you give Michael 4 hours, same time period, ends with a bad tour for 4 hours, then you get more fleshed out characters between everybody. But yeah, that's where I'm at as far as, American Dream versus Michael. They're both great. They can both coexist. I watched American Dream a few days before I watched Michael. You can really watch them both. They both tell two different stories, and they're both great. So I'm a little upset about some of the songs they did leave off the movie. Obviously, they're not going to get every single song on there. There's a lot of songs people wanted that didn't make the cut. One song I am happy that did make the cut somewhat was I Can't Help It. Favorite song off of the Off the Wall album. Even though it was just instrumental, it was great. I'm upset about one of the songs they took off the movie that was in the very first trailer, Heartbreak Hotel. I was looking forward to that for the longest.
Why the fuck would you show me something if I couldn't have it then? The fuck would you bring this out?
It's one of my favorite Jackson songs, and I really wanted to see it in theater, and they took it out. We need the Fuqua cuts badly. They also left off Rock With You, which I know they did film, but I was surprised they took it off the movie. Because I think with the albums that were included in the movie, that's probably his biggest song that wasn't included. I was a little surprised about that. I also do think they did attack some of Michael's, they answered some questions about Michael, his nose surgery. They answered that like really early in the movie after Michael gets beat by Joe. Joe calls him Big Nose, builds onto his insecurity, and shows why he initially got nose surgery. Even though that's not entirely accurate of why he got it in real life, it kind of fit the story, so we could allow it. It still mattered. It still was a reason why he had no surgery. They even addressed the vitiligo, and there's a lot of scenes in the movie where you can see like the blotches on his arms, of like brighter spots of the vitiligo, which is really good. Like attention to detail. Even I was surprised I even noticed it in the movie. They mentioned the painkillers after the Pepsi incident and how he really didn't want to have to take them, but he legit had to because he was going to be in so much pain, and that ultimately years later would lead to his death. So we'll see how they show it in part two, or how extreme it gets in part two. I think I covered just about everything. Favorite performance, Thriller, probably. Well, favorite moment was Thriller. Favorite performance, probably Human Nature. Like everybody's. Bad was really good too. Nephew killed it. Nephew killed it. And Young Michael killed it. Everybody killed it. Everybody was great in that movie. But yeah, I think I attacked everything I wanted to talk about in this. I can't think of any off the top of my head, and I probably will once I stop recording, so that's gonna be upsetting. But nonetheless, if y'all enjoy watching and y'all enjoy listening to me yap, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Outro.